Happy Saturday to you. I hope everybody is having a great Saturday so far and a great weekend. Man, we are getting down to that time. Holiday time is coming around quick, end of the year. My name is Don Terrell, and I want to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion, where I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades, and I highlight people of color in diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. This space that I'm just, if you don't know, after 3 seasons, I'm ecstatically crazy about. Now, you know the drill. Jump into the comments, say, hey, where you're tuning in from, so I can give you a shout out and give you a plug that you so richly deserve. Also, make sure that you hop on over to the Facebook group, get plugged in, facebook.com/groups/The Color of Motion. We're having a lot of fun there. The family is growing, sharing industry news, and like I said, just having all around fun. So definitely don't want you to miss out on anything for sure. Also, you can find and connect with me on all my social channels, as you see right there coming up. I definitely want to hear from you. YouTube, Don Terrell. You can find me on LinkedIn, Behance, Instagram, all those great platforms there. Definitely want to hear from you. Let me know what you think of the show. Anything that you might want me to try. Any guests that you may want me to try and get on, but I definitely love hearing from my viewers as well. Like I said, we broadcast live each and every week, live to YouTube, LinkedIn, the Facebook group. You can also check out the broadcast on the website as well. But I always kind of highly encourage everybody to hop on over to the YouTube page, get plugged in, subscribe, hit the bell notification, give a thumbs up. Mainly comment on the episodes as well, because it definitely helps the channel. And there you can check out all the past great guests that I've had on so far, and I've had on a lot for sure. So definitely hop on over there and get plugged in for sure. Oh man, Mr. DeMio, appreciate you, brother, tuning in. Happy Saturday to you. Happy Saturday to everybody there. And happy holidays, whatever holiday you so celebrate. Happy holiday to you as well. Ms. Jama, I'm going to assume it's a brother. Happy Saturday to you, Mr. Jama Ibrahim. Hey, bro, he's tuned in. I appreciate you tuning in for sure. Mr. No Parking, thanks for tuning in. Greetings. Everything is going well for sure. So, a fellow Londoner, Mr. Jama, is from London, here to support. So I appreciate that for sure. I want to have a big thank you to one of our sponsors for today's show, Restream. Great multi-streaming platform, one that I use to help me stream out to all my platforms simultaneously to all my channels. It's a great platform, so make sure you check that out if you're a live streamer or broadcaster and have multiple social channels that you want to touch and reach at the same time. They're a great one for sure. So thank you, Restream, for supporting the show. What else? Man, there's just so much. It seems like it's so much to do. Oh, if you are one of those ones that wants to support the show as well, hey, I love a great cup of coffee. Who doesn't? Love a good cup of coffee. But you can buy me a cup of coffee at buymeacupofcoffee.com/Don Terrell. You can donate to help me continue to bring great content to you and great things for you. Definitely have a membership portion to it where I'm going to be putting dedicated content for the members there. So you can do, $5 a month or $50 for the year for a membership, and definitely help, like I said, support, help me to continue to put on great content for sure. So, like I said, I hope you are as excited about this episode as I've been excited about this episode. And I'm sure she'll be able to tell you. I've been stalking her for a while, trying to get her on the show. She's such a busy person, but she has graciously got some time now to be on the show. So I'm just ecstatic about it for sure. So, without further ado, let's dive into it. My next guest was born and raised in London, UK. Currently working at Mikros as a senior feature film animator on Paw Patrol 2, the mighty movie. She's most passionate about crafting memorable performances that connect with the audience. She worked at MPC, a leading visual effects studio for photorealistic animation, delivering vividly expressive and meaningful characterization to a cast of celebrated CG animals and the soldiers in 1917, winning the Oscar for Best Visual Effects. Before moving to Canada, she had the distinct pleasure of animating for both Emmy and Bafta Award winning studios in London. She also was a generalist on international campaigns in advertising and created medical animations on new interactive media platforms. She has expanded skills across the entire production pipeline after completing a master's at Bournemouth University. She holds an advanced diploma from Animation Mentor. That was the school I was looking at too. Animation Mentor as well. She has been fascinated with cartoons since she was a child. When she was 8, Toy Story was released and it suspended her disbelief. She questioned if her toys were alive as well. I think everybody did that. Started talking to her toys and seeing if they came alive. She decided then that she wanted to animate for a living. It's that magic of feeling truly immersed in the entertainment that she hopes to pass on in her work for future generations to enjoy. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Miss Zeina Masri.
Hello, how are you?
Zeina, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
No, thank you for being on the show. And like I said earlier, you can, corroborate this. I've been trying to get you on for a while. And so
Yeah, that is true.
I'm just so glad that you have time now to be on the show.
Thank you, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. And you know the drill, everybody. Please hop into the comments if you have questions or just any thoughts or anything like that. Raleigh, Yahoo! I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Mr. No Parking, hello, Zeina.
Hello.
He gives you greetings. All right, we got some great engagement here. I appreciate everybody tuning in because, like I said, been so looking forward to this interview for a while. Like I said, like I read earlier, really got into animation when Toy Story came out, which I think was a big thing for a lot of young animators that first 3D animated. Movie. What were some of the other animations and cartoons that you really enjoyed kind of watching when you were a child?
Oh, definitely Tom and Jerry, definitely Tex Avery, Warner Brothers, and the other Disney classic 2D animations. Like I really like Pinocchio and Dumbo, even the Goofy movie.
Yeah.
Even though it's not critically acclaimed. I thought it was really entertaining and great soundtrack, and I must have watched that 1,000 times. But I also watched VFX with animation, like The Mask,
Yeah.
Jim Carrey, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, those kind of movies. I really loved just how funny they were and how creative they were. And as soon as I figured out, like, you could do this for a living, and I saw the behind the scenes. That was it. I was hooked. I was about 8, 9 years old when I saw the behind the scenes of Toy Story.
Yeah.
I just dedicated my whole schooling, education, and career just to pursue it and follow, the path to get into a studio where I could make feature films.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. And we kind of talked a little about this before the show. Um, your parents. How did your parents kind of encourage you? Um, you know, when you told them that this was something that you wanted to do, were they, supportive of you? Were they not sure? Were they, against it? What were your parents like when you said this is something that I think I really want to do?
Well, actually, they've always been very supportive of, anything I needed education wise. I never had to work in retail or fast food or any, small jobs that very fortunately, um, anything I needed, like school supplies or tickets to the cinema, they were just like, don't get a job, don't even get a part-time job. We'll give you whatever you need. Just please focus on your studies. So I did quite well at school, and they always knew that I had a passion for art and stuff. So it was only until it came to university and they learnt that the schools weren't close to where I live that they started to say, could you try something different? So yeah, the university that I wanted to go to was like 4.5 hours from where I live.
Yeah,
And my parents, they're quite conservative. They're from Lebanon, and the culture is totally different, right?
yeah,
So have a girl go and live on campus, and it's mixed campus. It's totally like unheard of. My dad used to say, "You're never leaving the house until you get married."
yeah,
So
yeah,
that was a huge hurdle I had to, overcome, and I had the support of my teachers. In fact, they on parents meeting were like, look, the schools aren't close by and you would be responsible for denying her future, her full potential. She's so dedicated, she's so focused, everything she does is just towards that goal. She doesn't have a spare minute where it's not like, I already chose the school I wanted to go to, I already picked, you know where I would go after that and what studios and what other requirements. Like when I went to the um, counselor for you have job counselors, and they kind of help you pick a career. I
yeah,
knew more about where I wanted to go and what I needed to do and what grades I had to get into the schools. They were like, yeah, you're fully prepared. But my parents were like, why don't you try architecture, why don't you try something closer to home? Um, and I had to say, no, I don't want to do graphics. I don't want to diverge. Like animation is really what I want to do. And, coming from that generation where they say art doesn't bring money, it was
yeah,
really hard for a long time to believe that creative people can actually make a good career and make it, so they're not struggling and paycheck to paycheck. But
yeah,
the more they understood about what I was doing, the more they'd be like, "Oh, there's animation in that advert," and they would see it everywhere, and they would say, "Hey, come look at this," and "Hey, did you see this?" and send me YouTube videos of things in random countries, and they started to see this is a growing, section in film and television and advertising, and now they see it's in AR, VR,
yeah,
it's even in visual effects. A lot of the work I've done for studios, you can't tell that it's animated. It's, you know, because the what do they call it? Animal protections agency and stuff are on set, so you have to not use dogs and abuse
yeah,
dogs. So what? The dogs, things like that, that you wouldn't even realize that they're animated. It's become a lot more seamless in filmmaking. So
yeah, yeah.
they totally see it and they're so supportive. They love it. They couldn't be prouder of me. They always wear the t-shirts and the hats and they have everything that I get from work and the pencils and the posters that are signed. They're framed in the house. So yeah, they're my
Yeah, I
biggest.
know they are. Oh man, and curious that you said that. I mean, you've been in the industry a little bit now,
Mm.
and been doing work. Have you come across many Lebanese animators or animators from Lebanese that area?
Not as much as I would like. I think we have one Middle Eastern girl at work, and in my other studio, Cinesite, we had one Middle Eastern gentleman who was extremely good. He was the lead for a long time at Cinesite Montreal, and now I'm the lead at Mikros animation, so I'm happy to like show them that it can be done, of course.
Yeah.
Um, I had a WhatsApp message from my cousin who's a teacher, and she was telling me, "Oh, we have a student that really wants to get into animation. Do you mind if I tell her about you? And can you contact her if she has questions?" I'm like, "Of course. Like, I want to help women who are in these countries where the odds are against them, and they have to kind of do more hurdles than you would think.
Yeah.
Because if you're English and you're white, or if you're in the Western part of the world, it's more so like, yeah, you could do anything you want to do. You could be an astronaut, you could be a dentist, you can do this. But if you're from where my parents are from, it's kind of like we have to also tell our parents we'd like to do this, and this is how much it's going to cost, and this is where we have to go to study. And, you know, it's more convincing because the schools there aren't as good. So it's
Yeah.
better now that there's online schools, but to say, okay, I'm from Palestine or Syria or Iraq or Jordan, and say I want to study in Toronto or
Yeah.
California. I want to
Yeah.
be an international student. I want to leave the country, let alone my house. That's a big persuasive, discussion to have with your parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even in this day and age, there are some parents that are still in the Middle East, still with that mentality, which is like, we prefer, to know that you're leaving the house when you have a husband and you have
Yeah.
a house.
Yeah. So was
So,
that so much of an issue when you decided to move from London to Canada, where you're at now, or were they comfortable with it? Just in the fact that you've been to school, you're making a living, and they see that you're providing a living for yourself. So was that? I mean, of course they were kind of maybe didn't want you, would prefer you to be a little bit closer, but for you,
mm,
what was the reasoning? Because there are some great studios in London doing some great work. So, what was your reasoning for leaving London, moving to Canada? Was it for a job, or was it just you wanted to be kind of closer, U.S. wise, with a lot more of the studios that are kind of here?
yeah, so to answer the first part of your question, when I went to Canada, I was, I think, in my late 20s. And by that time, I had moved all around England. I was in Swansea, I was in Bournemouth, I went to America for a while. So it wasn't as hard to convince them because I had so many years away from home that they knew all I do when I'm abroad anyway is work or study. So when I went to Canada, the reason was I had a job opportunity. I had the head of animation at the time message me on LinkedIn, and he asked if I was interested. And before then, I had applied to all the major studios in London, like MPC, Framestore, DNEG, Cinesight, and it was kind of at the time where they were like, to be a junior, you need 5 years experience. And how was I going to do that? So I had to do architectural visualization. I had to do, generalist. I had to be doing medical animation. I had to do VR, AR, like everything just to get a portfolio. I was freelancing,
Yeah.
and it was never good enough for those studios. They wanted more seniors. They weren't even hiring juniors. And at that time, there wasn't the NPC Academy or the other entry positions. There weren't even internships like they have ILM. And it was very limited to get into those studios. And I was networking my butt off. I would go to the bars after work on Friday. I would give them my demo reel. I'd go to all the clubs and communities and ask for feedback. Like, I was very proactive in networking and making sure they knew who I was and that I was looking for work. And that's how I got some work, but it
Yeah.
wasn't what I wanted to do, which was feature animation. And feature animation wasn't really being done in the UK. We had Illumination in Paris, um, but Mikros came temporarily to do like Romeo and Juliet and Sherlock Gnomes, and it was just a pop up and then it went. So I had to go to Canada for more opportunities, and it's been nearly 5 years that I've been there now.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky and fortunate and happy to be continuing work there because I've been on great shows. The shows are things that I enjoy working on and enjoy watching, and proud to have my name in the credits and to have younger cousins, nephews, nieces, whatever, saying, "Oh my God, my cousin
We
works on
see you in the
that."
credits. Yeah, well, I'm sure that was
And just waiting for our names and clapping, just it's such a lovely feeling, and it's great to have family so supportive of it, and they understand. I hardly get to see them because I'm working so hard and long
yeah,
hours.
yeah. And to that point, I want to ask you because I guess that's kind of the thing going around the industry, especially in visual effects. Like you're saying, like they're saying now, like you just said earlier, the visual effects are so realistic, so seamless. Do you feel like that adds a lot of pressure on artists with the amount of work studios are doing, the expectation that audiences have for the work now? A lot of I've read where a lot of visual effects artists get burned out. A lot of studios really kind of overwork their artists and things like that. Do you feel like that's a direct correlation with just the expectation of audiences expecting the kind of high quality realism animation out there?
Well, yes, and I'll tell you another point is not only are the viewers getting more critical of what good CG is and bad CG is, they are binge watching everything. So there's nothing to watch because they've watched it all. So we have to keep producing at a much faster pace. So it does put pressure on artists for sure. But what I will say is that it's a team effort and collaboration, right? So the rigging is excellent. There's dynamic simulation that's excellent. There's lighting that's excellent. There's fur that's excellent. It's, all of us do our best in each department to get the final polished look. And I feel that, you know, there's a plus side to it as well, right? Because
Yeah,
everyone's binge watching, it means there's more job opportunities. They're hiring bigger teams to try and get it out more. So, there's at least 5 to 10 times as much, job opportunities, and the teams are bigger than when I was coming out of school. So look at all the Marvel films they're making. Look at all the Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Netflix. There's all these streaming services that are doing episodic
yeah,
and film and VFX and features and in-house IP. So they're trying to, not always go to the big Hollywood ones like Universal and
yeah.
Disney, and so they're trying to as well create their own stuff and their own merchandise. And there's some great storytellers, so why not?
Yeah,
So
yeah, for
it's
sure.
pressure as well. With pressure comes, opportunities, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you've been in the industry 5 years. Do you feel like that's kind of the
No, I've
thing?
been in the industry much longer than five
Well,
years as well.
longer than
Yeah.
that. Do you feel like that's kind of a thing with new people coming into the industry, the pressure of keeping up with the work, or
Yeah. I mean, as a lead, I can see there are some juniors that were hired because they need to just finish a show, and it's really hard for them to learn the pipeline and produce. And it feels like the studio is setting them up to fail. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of imposter syndrome. It's a lot of relying heavily on seniors to pick it up and finish it, and that's it's going to hurt their confidence a bit. So I feel like as hard as I had to work to get to where I am, taking every step was worth it because, not only did I have to do an undergraduate degree and then a master's and then an advanced diploma, but I had to hustle just to get in a studio as a fixer, not a junior animator, a fixer. And that's just doing intersections, making sure the feet aren't floating or going through, the ground plane. It's, if there's a small fix on the hair going through the face. I did that for 18 months. But going through frame by frame is how I learned spacing and timing and posing and silhouette. And I would say, okay, which animator did that? And I would say, how did you do that? Did you use reference? Did you thumbnail? What is your workflow? What pipeline do you use? What tools do you use? And I got to slowly, while I was doing that boring work for 18 months, speak to the actual artists who ended up going to Sony and working on Hotel Transylvania and
Yeah.
Spider, and I could see they were super talented. And while I was in proximity with them, I would say, could you look at my shot if you're free? And I would send them a sync sketch link, and they would give me draw overs, how to push the pose, how to fix a pop or a spacing, or here's you're hitting a wall, or your eye lines changed here. And um, if you start juniors at projects which have less quotas, less urgency, less pressure, and they can grow at a more organic, comfortable pace, it's going to be overtime regardless. That's natural in our industry, but I don't want them to be so burnt out that they quit altogether.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
some people that's like, I, I, I can't do this. It's not just about, oh, I don't have a social life. I want to go out. I want to see my partner. Blah blah blah. No, it's really like, I had to go to hospital. I had nosebleeds. I was vomiting. I
Yeah.
fainted in the office. It's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
the office will get us pizza and try, and they'll pay us and everything, but we need better production planning, scheduling, bid days. We need stronger people to push back when the client is demanding things that are unrealistic, or we need a bigger team. Like, they can't just heavily rely on
Yeah.
the artists to, when it gets bottleneck and trying to push everything through at the last minute. It will compromise quality, it will compromise health.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get it's competitive, with other studios bidding for shows and stuff, but it has to be more sustainable overall, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the
No.
juniors and the leagues are comfortable at work and happy.
Yeah. We got a few questions for, we got a question here from Mr. No Parking. Zena. Zena. I knew I was
Yeah,
going to do
yeah.
that. I knew I was going to do
No
it.
worries, no
Zena,
worries.
how did it feel to work for Simpsons legend David Silverman on his movie Extinct?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so when I worked at Cinesite, I worked with Jason Ryan, who was a Disney
Oh,
animator,
yeah.
and it
Jason.
worked. Oh, amazing. I even used to watch his tutorials online
Yeah.
before I animate and all the online school stuff. So David Silverman was one of the directors for Extinct, and I had a really proud moment on that show. There was a shot that was boarded, and it was one of those small intro shots for one of the characters. And I had an idea how to make it funny and more entertaining and appealing. And I was new, but I knew that my idea was a better idea. So I said, hey, to my lead, I'm going to do this, but can I present an alternative? And they were like, well, usually they say, oh, can you please stick to the board? And I was like, okay. But they were like, it's a nice idea. We'll show it anyway. And they showed the original, which they asked for first, and then they showed mine, and he burst out laughing. And he was like, definitely the second one, we will go with it. And to have David laugh at my idea just in blocking, it felt like I was in the right place and I was doing the right thing, and I trusted my instinct, and I was, taking a small shot, and finding the entertainment in it, finding how to make it more, juicy, and that's basically entertainment. That's what we do,
Yeah.
and
Well, do you record yourself like other animators do when they're doing a scene and trying to animate a
oh,
scene?
oh yeah, I actually did an hour podcast at Mikros about acting recently, because I insist as much as I can for the artist to shoot reference. And I never ask to see the reference, and if they don't want to show it, I always say, if you're shy, that's fine. It's just your fastest way to get ideas out of the performance acting choices and stuff. So if you're going to go and pose it in Maya, the software we use, it would take a long time, and then we might just throw it away because I might say, I don't like it, or you're not hitting the beats. This isn't the intention of the scene. It doesn't hook up. So why don't we shoot some reference? I'll come into the studio. I'll shoot with you. I'll give my ideas. We could do different versions. If there's two people pushing each other, you need the second person to push you. Let's let's work on this together to, get something out of it, and then we'll cut some takes together and put it in an edit, and then you can do the storytelling poses. We'll present it. You can get some blocking and go through it spline and then polish it. It's so much faster and so much clearer. And
Yeah.
what you do in what you do if you rush is you miss out on the better acting ideas. Usually, the first ideas are very cliche because it's the first ones you think of, right?
Yeah.
So I taught them about theory. I taught them about, what is the character thinking? Why do they feel that way? What is the intention? Are they thinking outside in, inside out? Are they, what kind of happy is he? What kind of sad is she? And what kind of angry are they? There's angry, like violent angry. There's angry, like annoyed, frustrated. There's quiet. There's implosive, explosive. Like there's subtleties, and you have to be more specific to funnel choices in your acting. The more you can say the character is this and define their baseline, the more that it will be on model, and the director will say, yeah, it works. This is totally what they would be doing.
Yeah.
So I insist on acting as much as I can. I
Yeah.
understand time constraints and stuff, but for me, it's so much faster. And when I watch it and I'm acting as the character, the take that makes me laugh is the take that I will do because it affected me, which means my director will like it, my supervisor will like it, and usually the ones that I was just watching neutral, not reacting to it, they weren't the best choices to go to. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm curious because you were talking about all the degrees and education that you got. Now, do you feel and you've also taken animation mentor and got a degree diploma from there. Do you feel like that's a crucial thing that you have to have this piece of paper or degree behind you in art in this industry as opposed to looking at well this guy is just obviously I'm sure you've come across a lot of people that are just naturally talented because they put in the work learning animation and the whole process. But do you feel like that's a crucial thing that somebody needs to go after in order to get into this industry? Or do you feel like just work on your craft, work on storytelling, work on animating, and going from there?
I think that's a great question, and I hear that a lot from people who are like 15, 16, wondering if they have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for university and stuff. And the truth is, you don't need to go to university. The truth is, your demo reel will do all the talking for you. And the truth is, the recruiters, the HR, don't look at your resume before they look at their demo reel. Okay? So I can tell by looking at your demo reel if you understand the 12 principles of animation, the concepts clicking. Do you have nice storytelling? Do you have, you know, something interesting in your demo reel that's making it memorable? Um, then I might look at your LinkedIn, and I won't judge if you haven't gone to school because, there's a lot of people that have done online classes or just learned from a book.
Yeah.
If you can do the job, you can do the job. The only difference is if you want a visa, if you want to immigrate to another country,
Mm.
there's a point system, and that is where it matters. See, one of my friends is an excellent animator. He can animate circles around me, like no problem, but he didn't go to school for it, right? So now with his permanent residency, he will have less points than me. And I'll have much more points than him because I have highly skilled and highly educated. Meanwhile, he has only highly skilled. So I qualify more.
Mm.
So it depends on where you want to work. If you're British, for example, and you want to work in Britain, then you won't have to worry too much about this whole visa scenario. But if you're from China, India, Singapore, the Middle East, and you want to go to Canada, if you want to go to America, the visa is harder to get. It's not impossible at all because if a company sponsors you, it's almost the equivalent. But if you're trying to self-sponsor, self-petition for your visa or your permanent residency, there is a point system, and it does help to have degrees.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would
What do
say,
you
yeah.
feel like your differences in, say, Animation Mentor, what you learned at Animation Mentor with more of the traditional, schools that you went to, if they were for animation? Was there any major difference? What things differently did you learn from Animation Mentor that you didn't learn or didn't get from the other schools that you went to?
Again, that's a really great question. So, when I did my undergraduate degree, they taught the whole pipeline. I had to learn modeling, I had to learn concept art, scripting, storytelling, editing, compositing, theory, cinematography, business, uh, self promotion,
Wow.
everything. But when I did Animation Mentor, they gave me the rigs. I didn't have to model it, I didn't have to rig it, I didn't have to light it. It's like just animate. It's just a school for animation. And because all I wanted to do was animate, when I went and did my master's, I was hoping it would help me more to get an animation demo reel. But again, I was more of a better generalist. I wasn't specializing quite yet.
Yeah.
My master's, that's why I went on and did Animation Mentor, because my demo reel was just a really good generalist.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, hey, this girl does cartoony, she does realistic, she does heavy creatures, she does light creatures. It was saying, hey, I do lighting and modeling and rigging and scripting and editing.
Now, do you feel like that's a best place to start for ones getting into the industry, or do you feel like pick what lane that you're wanting to go down and early and focus in on that if you're wanting, like you said, to be an animator or a rigger or a modeler or whatever it may be? Do you think it's best to be specialized, or best to be a generalist, or best to have at least a working knowledge of the production pipeline of what it does, what it takes to produce an animation?
I think you hit the nail on the head. If you have a good overall understanding of rigging, modeling, because you will work with departments before you and after you, right? And if you are just animating for animation's sake and you were on an actual feature production, they might kick it back to you and say, when you put fur on this, which is the department after, for example, there's going to be intersections. It looks great from camera, but you broke it behind camera, right? And there's a
Yeah.
lot of cheating going on. You can't do that because there's a simulation. You can't do that because when we put the lights, the shadow will show and it will show that it's broken. So there is pros and cons. Um, I think also it does help if you have a knowledge as well, because it helps you with your ideas. Like if you studied cinematography and you looked at the greats like Citizen Kane and all those black and white movies that you don't usually come across until you study and you are told to study because this is great cinema. It gives you understanding of composition when you're doing your shot. It gives you understanding if you're going to do your own short movie, how to do it properly. Because what studios want is to see your personality, your story, you in your demo reel. They don't want to see too many walk cycles and bouncy balls. Yeah, they want to see, okay, what flavor are you bringing to this industry? How are you different? You don't want to be one of those animators that are a dime a dozen. They
Yeah.
want to see you're bringing in a spark, unusual acting choices, this uniqueness, from your own life. Maybe if you study in school, you'll have, if you did art and all those other subjects that you had to do to get to become an animator, you'd be better at observation, which is key to be an animator. And I don't just mean of like cinema. I mean, you start to draw in life drawings, you start to notice idiosyncrasies and different small things that your friends do. You begin to be able to imitate them, and you put them in your work, the way they eat, the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they go up the stairs. Like in my house, there's like 10 people, for example. I
Yeah.
can hear if it's my mom going up the stairs versus my sister,
Yeah.
versus, like I know the strides, the steps, the walking pattern, if they're holding the rail, if I can hear their ring hitting the rail,
Yeah.
all these small details. You
Yeah.
become a lot more in tune, and you start to archive all this stuff. You
Yeah.
know, when this girl is nervous, does she put her hair behind her ears? When this guy is fidgeting, is it because he's in love? I don't know. You just start
Yeah.
noticing things in people. It's also a broader scope. You do body language, you do the science of expressions and
Yeah.
muscles.
Yeah.
There
But
is
being a
something,
basic true observer of life, just life in
yes,
general, and just everyday things that people do, really brings, like you said, a unique, your unique quality in the animation as well. Just to throw in a few people are really throwing in some comments here, so definitely want to keep everybody in tune as well. Mr. DeMille, that really needs to change in regards to how studios have more opportunities for seniors rather than juniors. Yeah, I always thought that was an interesting thing. They say you want experience, but how do you get experience unless you get into the studio to get experience?
you have to
Uh,
do your own shots until they're good enough, which is tricky because you need a mentor to get you to that level of polish and quality.
yeah.
So,
Well,
network.
did you have a outside of animation mentor? Did you have a specific person before you got into the university and animation mentor? Was there one person that was really kind of helping you talent wise?
Yeah, I would say it was my art teacher, Mr. Keeble, which, if anyone knows me since I was a child, knows that I, was in his art class for at least 8 years, I think. And he's the one that spoke to my parents and convinced them to let me go and, continue studying. He really was like, encouraging me to continue more than the homework. He gave me an extra art book. There's the ones for your assignments, and there's the ones when you're just inspired. He, took the whole class to museums and exhibitions, and he was interested in my perspective. I guess he just believed in me, and
Yeah.
we we didn't really stay in touch, but like I messaged him on LinkedIn once because I was in the New York Metropolitan Met Museum, the
Yeah.
art gallery, and I saw a lot of stuff that I was studying when I was 16. So I was just saying, "Hey, I'm remembering you," blah blah blah, and he was like, "You won't believe how many animators want to be, animator now," and I always tell them, "Oh, I remember the first one, and she's done it now, and you can do it," and you know, it's
Oh man.
it was instrumental in me following it. It made it seem like it was possible, not just a pipe dream. As much as I had the passion and drive for it, like to have an adult on my side,
Yeah.
it was very important because my parents were like, no.
Yeah.
And to have someone in the industry saying, no, you really should, like, it
Yeah.
helped. It was
Weighs
appreciated.
it carries a lot of weight. It really does. And like we were talking about before the show, to have somebody that really believes in your talent and really encourages it is such a crucial thing for sure.
Mm.
Mr. DeMille, yeah, yeah, that was the one. Let me throw that back up. As someone who is making his way into the industry for the first time, that is good advice, but also a bit scary as well. And I'm assuming you're talking about just the getting into the industry. DeMille is a super talented animator, working his way in the industry. Did you feel like, uh, at what point did you kind of get past, I guess you could say, the imposter syndrome and felt like now you're a lead animator? At what point did you feel like, okay, I belong? I can keep up with the work. I can do the work. I'm really good, and you know, or do you still have those kind of feelings sometimes? I don't know.
Uh, it's a studio by studio basis. Every time I start a new studio, I have to start all over again with my reputation and proving it was worth them hiring me,
Yeah,
even as a senior. You know what I mean? Once I make them laugh, once I make them laugh from a shot, then they're like, okay, she can add spark. She can, have a boring shot where the dialogue is flat, and she can bring something to it, which wasn't easy, and she's more than capable. And I feel it just comes with experience. I Because I know how to use the software. It's just the idea, right? So the software is a tool,
Yeah.
and it's easy to teach a tool. There's YouTube tutorials on how to do all this stuff. It's a bit harder to teach what you're going to make the character do, and how you're going to make that interesting. That
Yeah.
takes a little bit longer because you have to encourage people to observe. You have to encourage people to take the time, thumbnail, review it, show people, get a mentor, and in time, with more experience, with more shots on your reel, with people in the it's such a small industry as well. People
Yeah.
end up vouching for you, recommending you, so you never feel like um, you don't belong. The first day maybe you're a bit shy, and I don't know the workflow, I don't know the pipeline, blah blah blah. Even if you have a friend there, or it's
Yeah.
very friendly when you're in the studio. You're always assigned a buddy, and you're always given at least 1 or 2 weeks where you're just doing nothing but learning and setting up and getting used to everything. They're very supportive in that.
Yeah.
Um, so it helps you get rid of those nerves and jitters. But I don't think now I have many shots where I'm overwhelmed,
Yeah.
because I'm having fun. And if you're relaxed and you're having fun and you're enjoying it, then you're confident, and it will show in your work. If you're not
Yeah.
confident, it really shows in your work.
Yeah.
And it will be watery, it will be not strong in posing, it would be rushing, it will be not planning properly. And when you have more experience, you understand to budget your time more on planning, because once you have the idea really clear, the rest of it is just downhill. So it comes with experience, and I'm happy to help your friend. Forgot his name, D'Amelio,
Camille.
was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, let him message me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to look at his work and see how I can help, for sure. And
You heard
thank you
that,
for.
Camille. Yeah, super talented, which I encourage everybody to, it's a community, get connected and be a part of the group. You'll learn a lot from it for sure. Question from A Manix. Advice on animating fantasy creatures. Um,
Yes. Yep, I can help with that.
what
All right.
advice? What advice would you give?
First of all, ask yourself. Well, you need to see the design of the character, the fantasy character. That's how I would help you first. Okay, so does it look like a mixture of animals? Because fantasy comes from our imagination. It could be a bird. It could be a flying creature. It could be, well, what size? It could be a dragon that flies. It could be, the size of a robin. It could have scales. It could have feathers. It could have a beak. It could have all those things. And when you see the character design, first of all, then you can start to look at YouTube videos of similar characters. Okay, so let's make two animals together, which could be um, an eagle and a tiger. Random. Okay, let's just say it's an eagle and a tiger, right? And it's kind of a strange fantasy creature where it's a flying quadruped that's heavy. Okay, so what I would do is break it down. So we have to study the mechanics of flight cycle, how they fly, how they stop, how they move direction, how they land. I would study flight in general for that character. Then you have the quadruped animation. So it's a heavy character. So I would look at, okay, I said tiger, but you can still look at lions. You can still look at leopards, cheetahs, any heavy cat that is a good reference for your shot. You can definitely use it. And I said eagle, but you can use the parrot if that reference is good. And you can use the poses in that particular reference, It's a feathered creature. If it's something where it's like swimming, you could look at fish. If it's serpent-like, you could look at different reptiles. You can just mix and match. And the more polar opposite, I guess, the more interesting.
Yeah.
there's no right or wrong answer. It's a fantasy creature, right?
Yeah.
So as long as it's believable, you're gonna have a successful shot. So,
Yeah. No, I agree. There's something I love. Aaron Blaze, Disney,
oh,
awesome, talented Disney that worked at Disney, does a lot of animal animations. He's done Brother Bear and all of that stuff. But he said something um, really, great in that, you know, even though he does like cartoony style animations, he still understands real animal anatomy and how
exactly.
animals move. Just like any a character animator would tell you, study body mechanics and how a human moves, the muscles and how they move a character. So just studying real life and how it compares and how you're going to match it to whatever it is that even if it's fantastical. And he
Mhm.
always says that, until you understand that, only then will you be able to push it into this cartoony kind of or just fantastical type of thing. Until you
Yeah,
understand the basics of what a real, the real mechanics or the real physiology of whatever it is that you're animating, is. It makes you so much better at it for sure.
yeah. I mean, he's absolutely correct. I was lucky to meet him at CTN, and
Mm,
if you master how to animate those kind of animals realistically, what is cartoony animation? It's exaggeration. Okay, it's gonna be different timing, so it's snappier. There's going to be bigger anticipation poses, longer holds, and that's just tweaking real life. It's caricaturing real
yeah,
life. That's what's cartoony about it, right? So, as a human, not a fantasy creature, if I'm doing a cartoony shot like Hotel Transylvania,
yeah,
if you look at how they did their reference, or even DreamWorks did great stuff for Boss Baby
yeah,
and other songs like that. They sped it up, they froze it, they're editing their own references. So you could once you have the real footage of the heavy cat, you speed it up, you slow it down, you do drawovers again, maybe in Sync Sketch or any other drawover software that your studio might have, and you can push the pose where you're exaggerating or you're having multiple limbs or you're having smear frames because it's crazy, spacing and you don't want to pop. So definitely anatomy first. Even in the face, some people will do elevator eyebrows when they're
yeah,
going up and down. It's more pinned here and it goes up more from here, from the corrugators. All these kind of things will help you get better at animation, understanding the mask, where there's compression, and when you open your mouth, it's wider. When you lower your jaw, the lips come in closer. You
yeah,
know, all these things. Otherwise, your animation is going to look more incomplete. Let's
yeah,
say
yeah.
inaccurate because anatomically you can't do that. There's no muscle systems that would be able to keep the lip corners out there when your jaw is down here.
Yeah, so
You
true, so true. Mr. No Parking, thanks for answering his question with that amusing short story of how you made David Silverman laugh. I think if you could make a person laugh, you know you're ahead of the ball game for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Mr. DeMille, you mentioned burnout earlier. What do you recommend to animators looking to join a studio to avoid getting burned out?
Okay. Be very conscious of time and planning. Don't overpromise. Communicate with your coordinators, please. You know, don't think that I'll get this shot by Friday and you need an extra 3 days. Just it's better to tell them on Wednesday. I'm struggling a little bit. I think I can do it by Wednesday, and they'd much prefer that transparency than for you to burn yourself out and not be able to do the 10 shots you have to still do after, right?
Yeah,
So um, don't also be afraid to ask the person next to you. Of course, you're gonna have to show your lead, but the more you can get it in a better stage before you show your lead, the quicker we'll get approved, so you won't burn out, hopefully. You know, the people in the animation industry, especially on animation teams, we're all very collaborative. We like to help each other. We like to act for each other, give notes for each other within reason. Of course, it's down to the supervisors and the leads. But
Yeah.
if it's notes not on the performance, if it's like, oh, you missed a breakdown, or oh, you have a huge eye line direction here, or you should add a blink here, small stuff that it will help, you know, you with efficiency and to get your stuff on time. I think with burnout, you have to don't think of it as a badge of honor, because you really can get unhealthy very
Yeah.
quickly. It doesn't matter how young you are. I was like that. I would not sleep for 3 days. I would sleep under my desk. I would try to
Wow.
not. No, it was what you do when you're younger, because you have the stamina and the passion, and don't let studios exploit your willingness to work crazy hours. I find the older you are, the more like, hey, no, I have kids at home, or no, I promised my partner I would meet
Yeah.
them. Like you're much more confident to say, no, I have other plans. Sometimes you will have to work on a Saturday. That's, in your
Yeah.
contract it says there might be overtime. You have to understand that.
Yeah.
Um, but the more organized you are, the more you do your planning first for each shot, the more you could communicate with your coordinators and your production team, the more you aren't afraid to, in dailies, put your hand up and say, I'm not quite sure about that feedback. Can you just explain it again, so you're not misunderstanding? Because that wastes time. Don't be
Yeah.
shy to say, can you explain it again? I'm not sure I got what you were saying. Can you communicate that again? If you can record the dailies, obviously, I understand there's non-disclosure agreements and stuff, but if you are able to record the dailies and rewatch them to make sure you don't miss a note, so you're systematically going through everything and making sure you're doing everything so that the next delivery you're hitting all the notes, you'll be faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
All these things will help. Getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, eating enough. Try to. I exercise in the morning before I start work. That's my literal way of putting myself first. Because I always used to say, oh, I've got a job, I'm super busy, blah, blah, blah. But now I say health before wealth.
Yeah.
So I literally will wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and do what I need to do. I'll have a shower and then I'll start my work day,
Yeah.
because that's the only way that I know that I've looked after myself. I'm keeping my joints moving. I'm, having a shower. I'm fresh. I'm ready. I'm alert, and I'm ready to start at 9 a.m. Some people need a coffee or a cigarette or to chat. How was that episode last night of whatever everyone's watching? And I'm
Yeah.
like, let's go, let's go. Like 9 is when we hit the ground running, sort of,
Yeah. 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 No, definitely. To this point, though, what's been the most challenging thing for you to this point in your journey?
The most challenging thing. Uh, it's just to keep going and to keep believing in yourselves, in ourselves. There are some times where you just say, oh, it'd be so much easier if I had a 9 to 5, but you won't be satisfied. Believe me. Like, if you are an animator that is born to animate, it doesn't matter if you're content, going and working in a bakery instead, or getting a receptionist job and just saying, you know, why do I have to work so hard? It's so rewarding if you can animate and follow through. And there are times where I wanted to quit. Believe me, there was, when I graduated, it was the recession. There was no jobs. I had to go and babysit for money to pay
Yeah.
my way through my masters. You know what I mean? I was doing photography, I was doing graphic design, I was doing anything to fund animation. So when I keep getting rejection emails, which are generic templates like, oh, we have gone with another candidate, and thank you, and we'll keep you, and I've had those same emails for years, and that I'll still get them if I apply to the big studios,
Yeah.
which you got to still try,
Yeah.
but it doesn't. You get thicker skin, and it's hard sometimes to get that rejection, but understand that um, you might not have been suitable for that show, and you might not have been applying in the right time, but keep applying when you have something new. I think LinkedIn is great, and I recommend people to reach out to the head of animation or to, network with the leads. You can try, because it's not Facebook. It doesn't have to be your family and friends, right? This is a networking platform, the
Yeah.
studio. Talk to HR, talk to recruiting, say when is your next hiring period. Uh, you know, uh, Show them your shots that you're working on and say, I'd love if you can pass this on to the animation supervisor. If you have a show that might suit me, please get in touch. I'm very interested in working at your studio. I've been a fan of the shows that you've done.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have events where there's open evenings and you can just come see and the opportunities. And I say go to them, even if it's like what I had to do, which was go to bars and clubs,
Yeah.
not clubs, like the pubs, I'd
Yeah.
say. On Friday, it's beer o'clock at 5 o'clock, and they all start having drinks, and then they go to the pub, and I'm like, well, I know the studios are in Soho, so I know they're gonna be in one of these five places, and you can always hear them over talking about this or that, and then you can just say, I'm trying to get in. Do you have any advice? What is the style of the show? Without revealing too much about what you're working on. If you say, go animate tigers, go animate tigers, okay, and then you find out they're doing Lion King. When your demo reel is all tigers, they'll be able to see that she could be on Lion King actually. If you
Yeah.
just give like a discreet kind of guide in the right direction, or if you're saying, I don't know, if you're doing another Harry Potter or Game of Thrones or something, you can say, I heard that there's going to be, not in this sort of way, but you can say, the trend of the films coming up are going to be dragons. Go do some dragon shots. So they'll have something actually relevant to
Yeah.
help them get into the studio without revealing anything, of course. I would never
Yeah. Yeah.
never advise anyone, please respect the NDA, because you will get blacklisted, and the industries will talk.
It's a small industry. Like I said, your
Yeah,
reputation goes around quickly.
yeah, definitely your reputation matters, and people will say, this person's not trustworthy, and if they're going to talk about this studio when they get into our studio, they might, disclose information which is sensitive material. Don't do
Yeah.
that. Just
Yeah.
if you can advise people, do stuff like Hotel Transylvania, and then you find out they're doing a super snappy, cartoony show. After you're helping them indirectly. Do a personal shot in the style of the show. That's how you can help people get in and overcome when you're feeling like you want to quit. You just have to keep inspired and remember why you did it in the first place. Remember how you felt when you watched the Tex Avery, the Tom and Jerry, the Looney Tunes, how funny it was. And you're basically creating content for the next generation. Like when I was working on Paw Patrol, and the director was talking about the feedback they were getting, the parents were saying, this is the first movie we're taking our children to. It's in the cinema, in the theater. They're going to always remember the first film they saw in the cinema was one of mine.
Yeah.
It's a really important milestone in a child's life, and to have a small contribution to their entertainment, and understand that my shot is actually being seen by millions of people all over the world, and it's going to be dubbed in all these crazy languages. It's amazing. So
No. And you never
keep
know
doing.
who you might inspire. Like I said, sitting in that theater chair to want to get into animation and be an animator themselves or in the industry
Exactly.
in some kind of way.
Yeah, you could be the next Glenn Keane or Aaron Blaze, or Keith Lango. There's so many amazing animators out there in different styles. There's
Yeah.
super cartoony, there's super realistic. Study the animation. When you're fed up and you want to quit, go look at the stuff that made you start on one in the first place. Break it down. How did they do it? And then try and do it in your own way, in your own shot.
Yeah.
So if it's something from Toy Story, go do a ragdoll animation when Woody's like all floppy, or go do something emotional. where you cried because Andy gave away his toys. You know, anything that makes you feel something will drive you to do it. And when you're in that bubble, you don't look at the clock, you don't look at, you're not distracted, you don't look at your phone, and you'll be in that moment. And that's where your best work comes out. And that's the stuff that will make your demo reel really shine.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you'll have a better chance of getting picked when you feel like quitting.
yeah. No, for sure. And on that note, we're getting ready to take a look at some of Zena's work, and you will be just blown away like I was when I saw it. So let's take a quick look.
Okay.
Such amazing work. Has there been a shot where it was hard to get through for you, or you just had a hard time kind of working it out?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for showing that. I wish I could show the more recent work, but we'll
Well,
have to
everybody
wait till
understands.
summer.
We'll have you
But
back after it's released.
yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to come back. The hardest thing I've ever had to do was that 1917 stitch shot where it's just digi doubles. We had a lot of pressure, and they basically said the whole point of 1917 is to make it look like it was done in one take,
Mm,
which of course it wasn't. It wasn't done in one take. It wasn't even done in one location. And I had this shot that it was like we're gonna make or break the illusion that it's one take. Basically, the whole film is riding on your shot, Zena.
wow.
And I was like, okay. And everyone was tired. Everyone was burnt out. It was like a 911. Like everyone was just putting out fires every morning. It was insane. But we knew this movie was special. And before it was nominated and winning Oscars and BAFTAs and stuff, we knew that the story was like, oof. I couldn't wait to tell everyone, go watch this movie. It's going to be great. And even though when you watch it in the movies, you don't even know that it's CG. That was, I think, the hardest shot I had to do because it was stitching two shots. They're completely CG. They're in the wrong position. You have to animate their props. You have to make it look realistic. They're going up this mud. There's flies. There's dead horses. There's fake army guys dying in the background. We're doing them holding the grenade and running, doing them holding the grenade, running and dying, different variations of them running, different variations of them dying. How do flies eat? How do flies hover? How do flies fly? And it's like all the stuff that you don't even know is CG, that's the hardest stuff, because if it looks wrong, your eye's drawn to it. If it looks right, it's invisible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you do your best work so it isn't seen.
Now I think that's like you said, when you get so engrossed in the movie, you're not even thinking about the CG of it or the animation of it and how it's done. Which leads into a question by A Manic. Was that all hand keyed?
Yeah, so what I can tell you is that I went to school with the head of crowds. It was just a coincidence. We went to the same school and for the same university in Swansea. He lived in the same dorm room opposite me. His name is Chris Bending, incredible crowds guy. And I was in Montreal and he was in London. As soon as I was on this show and I saw how much crowds, I was like, let me talk to Chris because I know him and I'm sure I would help get things done faster if I communicate with him. And I wasn't a lead or a senior at that time, but they just trusted that I had that relationship with him. So, yeah, it was first of all, we used mocap from World War Z. Okay.
Really?
And then, yeah, first of all, we used World War Z mocap for 1917 and it didn't work. So we had to, in the end, keyframe. They were also holding AK-47s, which weren't invented in that World War, 1917. So the positioning, the holding of the hands where they were, it didn't work. So we had to redo the constraints. We had to redo the overshoots, the drag, the shoulders, the
Wow.
so it was pretty crazy. But yeah, it was World War Z that they tried because we have, of course, every studio will have a library of cycles that they will reuse, whether it's animals walking or people running. That will save time. Of course, it's just not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
It's totally. If I was a head of a studio, I would do the same thing. If we have someone uh, playing football or applause or all this generic crowd stuff, I would use it. That's the whole point. You have clips, but it just didn't work with the way that they were holding the guns, the way that we're running. The strides were wrong. The clips were too different. So the top half of the bodies were a different clip from the bottom half of from the body. So in the end, we had to redo it. So I would say about 90% of it was keyframed, and we have good the dynamic system as well at NPC is very good. You can have it on the rigs, and as I say, it's a collaborative studio, and it's NPC is one of the best studios for VFX.
Yeah.
Can't deny that they have a lot of good shows, and 1917 got the Oscar for best VFX because it was deserving of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you enjoy kind of compositing animation with visual effects, live action, or do you prefer just straight 3D like Paw Patrol? Or, I mean, is there one that you enjoy more than the other, or do you enjoy both as long as the story is well and the shots are challenging?
That's exactly it. You answered my question. It really just depends on the story and how the characters are moving in the performance. If it's like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, why would I care that the elements in the environment are not CG? I don't even model them, right?
Yeah.
So it's totally for me the style of the show, the story, and what can I contribute to it? How can I have fun? How can I infuse myself or my experiences or the stuff that I've archived, from observing other people into this film and make it unique and different acting choices and funny, entertaining, and that stuff. So I have no problem, using live action plays. That's why I went, to NPC. It's getting to know that pipeline, getting to know about holdouts, getting to know about, digi doubles that are holding a character. Like you would have like a character talking to a tennis ball or
Yeah.
you that's the plate that you have, or you have them holding an invisible, like they're just cupping their hands holding nothing, and then you have to put the animal there and you have to track it with the camera. All these kind of things, it's good to have. It's good to have. I'll tell you a tip. It's good to have a little bit of at least knowledge in both, because during the pandemic, a lot of VFX studios had to stop work because for them to make the plates, they had to be on set in Hollywood or wherever, Pinewood Studios in London. Because of COVID and the pandemic, everything was shut down, right? So
Hmm.
if you don't have plates to work with during the pandemic, you lost work. Because I was experienced in CG, fully CG, feature film animation, as well as CG, I made the switch over to feature where I didn't rely on VFX plates. Everything was elements from CG, and everyone was working remotely. So the show must go on. We just carried on working uninterrupted. And I think like 80% of Paw Patrol, or even more, was done fully remotely during the pandemic. All of us were working busy, and we didn't have any delays on getting it out.
Yeah.
Client was happy, and if I had stayed in just VFX, then I would have had a lot of time where we would have to wait for it to be safe for actors to be
Yeah.
on and for the staff and the even the runners, the people that hold the mics, the people that are nameless, faceless people that help get the shots done. Their protection matters too. We have to make
Yeah.
sure they're healthy, they have their social distancing, they have their masks, they have their vaccinations, whatever they need, so that we can do the work that they come before us. We need the plate. And
Yeah.
since VFX didn't have the plate, a lot of people were out of work without even a 2 weeks notice. It was just
Yeah.
boom, there's
Boom.
no work. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Mr. DeVille loves your work. Amazing work, for sure. Like I said, great work. Um, uh, for you, um, is it how integral is it for you to encourage more women into the industry? I think, and I was just reading, and I think I just reposted an article, and they were talking about Red, Disney's or I think it's Disney that did Red, might have been Pixar,
Yeah.
but it was uh, pretty much all women on the production
Mhm.
team and everything like that. How encouraged are you with more women getting into the industry, more women getting into directors' roles, writers' roles, and really starting to get into the whole production pipeline?
I'm quite involved, of course. I have been a member of Women in Animation for a while. I even worked for them as a volunteer, creating content, newsletter, was at events. It is better than it was before, for sure. So, like when I was studying, it was maybe five female animators to 30 or 40 male animators as students, and then after all the people dropped out that didn't want to carry on animation, I think there was, well, actually in the graduation there was maybe two female animators.
Yeah,
Um, I feel like it's better because you get different stories. Of course, it's of course it's one thing to say, you can say, let's say it's a princess story. I don't know, something cliche, and then for you to talk about the struggles as a woman, it's a little bit like, could be good to have female perspective. There's a very good animator. I think her name is Jude Brownbill. She's British. She went to Bournemouth University. She worked at Blue Zoo. Very similar, studios that I worked for. And I think I heard that one of the reasons she got to where she is today, as I think she's probably a supervising animator now at Pixar, is she was working on cars, and there was a car that was a female, and I think the car was British, and she started saying, "Oh, we wouldn't do that," and that's not really English, or that's not really feminine, or she started to say, those aren't the correct acting choices. And I feel when you have a more diverse, team, it could be. African American, it could be Caribbean, it could be Middle Eastern, it could be Oriental, it could be Australian. Like when you have diversity and you do your research and you have people authenticating everything, it matters. Representation always matters. That's the
Yeah.
bottom line. Whether
Yeah.
it's female or whether it's
Yeah.
different disabilities, different sexualities, whatever it is, I feel that we're very uh, to keep up with what's acceptable, and what's happening these days. I think it's important that it's not just about equal pay; it's about equal opportunities.
Yeah.
And by 2025, I think the goal is to have 50% women in the animation industry. As men, I will say it's definitely improved.
Yeah.
There's women that are working at Mikros. There's a lot of women that, well, there's a lot of people that don't identify gender. There's,
Yeah.
non-binary. The animation industry is very open and welcoming to people of all colors and backgrounds, and however you want to be identified. We're very supportive and open to
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah. What are some of the animations out there now that you seen as like, wow, that was done really well, or that you really kind of like you said, like we were talking about earlier, there are a lot of streaming platforms now that are putting out so much great content. Netflix and Arcane and Intergalactic and Spider-Man Into the Spider. There's just so many out there. What are some of the ones that you as a lead animator at a studio look at and think, wow, they did that really well. It was just a really well done animation.
yeah. So all I do actually in my spare time is watch movies and study animation. It's just my life. So, whether it's animation or films, it's like I critique it. I'm someone who's, when you have a person that gets the punchline before they finish the joke, I'm like always, oh, the story's gonna end here. If I'm not enjoying a film, I'm basically predicting it. So there's only a few movies that I watched that I was really like, oh, I am energized, I'm inspired. I just want to animate. I want to look at that film again. I want to break down that shot again. And I would say it happened on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. It happened on Hotel Transylvania,
Hmm.
and it happened on Spider Verse, and that happens to be all Sony movies. You know, just by chance. That what they did was they went completely against the grain in style
Yeah.
of animation. We were seeing a lot from Pixar and DreamWorks that was like more realistic, more you know there is the character design is like, okay, let's say Up, for example, which is a great film, but
Yeah.
the old man is like a boxy character. And, it's cute and it's funny and it's appealing and everything. But what Sony did with Hotel Transylvania was just Gendy Tartakovsky. It's
Yeah.
all TD animation. He did all the Cartoon Network stuff like Samurai Jack, Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab. He literally did drawovers and made it not about it being CG, because ultimately when you're watching it on screen it's 2D. And
Yeah.
I think they well, not pioneered, but I would say they had a huge influence on stickies. I don't know if you guys know what stickies are, but that's basically when you put something on the rig to make the rig deform. So
Yeah.
it could be on the face, it could be on the clothes, it could be something that wasn't rigged, but you're basically sculpting it to fit into the drawer over, or you're sculpting it to exaggerate. You're putting multiple limbs, you're breaking the rules of animation, you're twinning, you're holding too still, you're hitting walls, and it's just like everything that you were learnt, you're throwing it out the window and making crazy animation. And when I watched Hotel Transylvania, and I watched Cloudy, and when I watched Spider Verse, I just was like, oh man, I can't animate at all. I have to really pull my socks off and
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And you just go on. Everyone that left the cinema with me, I went with like 20 animators. They were all just like, what are we doing? Everyone wanted right now. It was one of those things that all of us unanimously. I'm not a superhero fan. I just wanted to go to Spider Verse because all my friends were going to see Spider Verse,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, whatever. It's just a social thing. I was blown away.
Yeah,
I don't
it
remember
definitely was a
watching it.
different kind of animation that you saw.
Yeah.
And I watched a interview. They were talking to the directors and the producers
Mm,
of it, just down to those segments where they use like half toning to where it
mm.
looked like it was a comic book, printed comic book style. It's just like I said, getting out of that box. While I love Disney and Pixar, and I love all of that. It's just those ones that kind of step out and, like you said, kind of break the mold of what the typical type of movies that you see are. I think are the ones that you want to go back and rewatch again to see, man, how did they do that?
Yeah, but not only that, they became the trendsetters, right? So if you watch the Bad Guys from
Yeah, I
DreamWorks,
watched that. Yeah,
that's totally inspired by Sony's style, and it looks great. I really loved how it came out, and I think it was super successful. And now people are kind of moving away from that hyper realistic stuff and getting more towards, okay, people like snappy cartoony stuff sometimes, and this whole 2D flat shader stuff.
yeah,
I
yeah.
it's
Have you seen
they
the new Pinocchio by Guillermo del Toro?
not yet.
Oh,
Now that I'm on vacation, it's on my watch list. I've
oh
heard
man, I watched it
about
the other night, and I'm not gonna spoil it, but it's amazing. I love stop motion, so I thought it
it.
was, like I said, such a great animated movie, and Guillermo's such a great storyteller, just
Mm.
outright storyteller. You
Yeah,
know.
and hats off to stop motion animators. I could never do that. I rely so much on the undo button. I rely so much on A tools and Animbot. Thank you so much for all the people that do scripts for me to make my job easier. I can't do straight head animation for
Oh
my.
man, yeah, you got it. When you see the behind the scenes of them doing it, or even the fast, sped up version of how they're putting it,
I'm that.
you cannot walk away without having an appreciation for that medium, because it's just so time consuming. I couldn't imagine doing it, but I guess if you love it, and like I said, the story is just an amazing story, and you got such talented people, then it's worth it. But man, oh man, the work they put into it, building the characters, moving it, and then photographing it, and then moving it another inch, it's unreal, really is.
It's amazing. I can't even wrap a present with sellotape without getting frustrated. I'm so fiddly, like I'm all thumbs. Like I wouldn't be able to do stop motion. No way.
Oh man! Again, everybody just joined us. We've been having an amazing conversation with our friend Zeina here from Mikros, lead animator, and like I said, we're on an hour and a half, so we're gonna wrap this up. But it's been such a great conversation, and well worth the wait of getting you on the show, Zeina.
Thank you.
Just well worth the wait, and just so excited about having you back on. Question here. We're gonna throw in a few more comments before we wrap it up. Mr. or Mrs. I'm not sure. Mannix. I am mostly into VFX creatures, but those hotel shots
So,
always drop my jaw.
yep.
Hotel T shot. Yeah, I loved Hotel Transylvania. It was and that's one of those ones that I watch a lot. Whenever I can get a chance, you just go back and rewatch it again and again, because, like you said, the squash and stretch that they've got, and just that kind of slapstick kind of
Mm-hmm.
animation that they got with that was just it was so top notch. Mr. DeMille, question for you: did you enjoy Inside Out and Ready Player One as well?
Inside Out. What I can tell you about Inside Out is I like the research that went into it. I met Pete Docter, and I know that he worked with Dr. Paul Ekman, I think his name is, and he has a PhD in body language and facial expressions and everything. So he went to like Papua New Guinea, where they have never seen a camera or film or any. They've been never been inspired by the Western, people. And in the 1970s, I think Dr. Ekman went and he went with a camera and with a crew and a translator to say, what does happy look like, what does sad look like, what does fear look like, after he related a few scenarios, like, telling a story about this, and there was a sad part of the story or a happy part of the story, and he basically was the first person to say expressions are universal. So happy looks the same, and sad looks the same, and anger looks the same, and disgust looks the same. So he's the first person that categorized things, and Pete Docter used his research. He was a scientific advisor. Ekman was the advisor for Pete Docter's Inside Out film. So it's interesting that he, first of all, just like Aaron Blaze was saying, you have to know the science and the anatomy and everything before you get into the entertainment side of it. So he did his research and stuff. I enjoyed Inside Out. Yeah, it's not my favorite Pixar movie. That's just personal preference.
Yeah.
Because I think, Toy Story 3 was very good. Toy Story 1 and 2 was very good.
Yeah. Yeah. I even like Bug's Life. I thought Bug's Life was good too.
Bug's Life was good. Bug's Life was good. And Pete Docter obviously did Up, and he did.
Yeah. No.
Monster
But what I
Inc.
liked about Pixar was on each one they pushed the boundaries of what it was that they were trying to learn. Like on
Right.
What was the scary one? Monsters Inc. It was fur.
Yeah.
So each movie they really pushed themselves. With Finding Nemo, it was underwater, water simulation, that type of thing.
Lighting, yeah.
Yeah. So I love the fact that, like I said, they've obviously gotten, obviously even from the beginning, story has always been king with them, which is what I love. But technology-wise, they didn't, lay in their laurels. They always looked, okay, what can we push ourselves on? And you can see the difference between Toy Story 1 and their last one. They've just grown so much in what, the animation that they've done.
That's right. So they also have their shorts project, right? So they
Yeah.
had Jerry's Game, I think it's called, where the
Yeah.
old man was chess with himself, and that's what opened the door for The Incredibles 1. Because before that, the humans looked plastic and woody, and in Toy Story, they look totally unrealistic. By today's standard, there's no subsurface scattering, there's
Yeah.
no good light in them, there's very crude, articulated joints. So, if they hadn't done the shorts program where they did a human character, they wouldn't have been able to do The Incredibles and helped, other studios do humans. But to answer his question, for Ready Player One, I actually like the book more than the film. I had it on Audible, and the guy that was reading it, he read it so descriptively that I imagined the book better than the film actually came out. So when I saw the film, it was so much better in my imagination. It was one of those things that I think people had that feeling with Harry Potter. So a lot of people that are younger than me were like, "Oh, I don't really like the Harry Potter movies as much as the books," and I never understood that until it was Ready Player One for me. So I really enjoyed the book. And when people say, "Oh, you're reading the book and you don't even see the words on the page, it just, opens a world." And I was like, "What are you talking about? A book's a book." That book, Ready Player One, was the first book that actually opened my mind and my imagination. And when the film came out, it was totally not as cool as my imagination.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of reading. You create the visuals, in your head as you're reading whatever book it is that you're reading. It's you're the one that's creating. And so there's always this kind of disconnect when it's made into a movie because they're going to take artistic license in just the things that they do that don't really follow the book or may stray a little from the book or the character so much. Just a few final questions to throw up here. Mr. Jose, wow, this is really big. Mr. Jose, hi Don and Zeina. I've been not able to listen to the conversation from the beginning. Make sure that you go back when it's up on the channel and check it out because you'll definitely learn some stuff. It's been great listening to Zeina. I am a VFX animator based in London. Thanks a lot.
Nice.
He appreciates
I'm in
that.
London. Let's meet up
Yes,
while
she
I'm
is
here
in
for a month.
London, and just got in today. So I so appreciate her taking the
I've got the
time.
boarding pass and my tickets in my pocket. Hold on. I've got my honestly, look.
I did not know she flew in today to
Yeah,
be with her family. So I appreciate her taking the time to be on this show.
yeah. I told
She's
you on my day off, and this is my day off. So there you go. But yeah,
Mr. No Parking. The Incredibles was Pixar's first foray into all human cast with tons of challenging special effects that come with being on an action movie. And I think uh, uh, dang, who did the Incredibles again?
Brad Bird.
Brad Bird. He's such
Yeah.
like I said, with Iron Giant and the things that he's done, he's such a great animator. So it was a great choice for him. And he just came in, and at the time, just kind of almost did a 360 on the style of what Pixar had done to that point of what they
Yes.
were doing. So he just totally changed it up, which was a great thing that Pixar had done.
You're absolutely right. Did you see that interview where he was talking about, oh, for CG, they like things to be well lit, and when he went and did Ratatouille, it was all in midnight of Paris and stuff, and it was like super challenging. But that's it. He was just totally, as you said, the opposite of what Pixar
Yeah,
are used to, and it opened such gorgeous visuals,
yeah.
of nighttime in France, and I'm so glad Ratatouille was very successful in my
Yeah,
opinion.
Ratatouille was a good movie too, and that's why I think, and you'll have to let me know when you watch it. Pinocchio, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, because
Yeah.
it's just so different from Disney's Pinocchio, but
Mhm.
so well done. And the story is so well done. So I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on it, once you watch it, because I was just blown away. And then when I saw, and he's got it behind the scenes, so check that out
Mm.
too. He's got it behind the scenes. They're all talking about how they made it and everything. So very well done. And like I said, the Toro is just a master at storytelling and horror. So I just love it. He also has another series on Netflix, Cabinet. I'm watching it now. Cabinet of it's kind of a horror anthology, almost like Alfred Hitchcock. He doesn't
Oh,
direct. Yeah, he doesn't direct any of them, but he comes out and gives like a narrative before each short or before each film, talking about it, and then he tells who kind of gives a little backstory of the horror, and it's all horror, so it's just amazing. So such curiosities, cabinet of curiosities. Thank you, Manix. Another great thing. Like I said, it got me into. I need to watch more of Guillermo del Toro's stuff. Like I said, I loved Hellboy. I haven't seen
the
uh,
the the Shape of Water.
Shape of Water yet. I haven't seen
Oh,
that.
I saw that
Um,
on the airplane. I not this time when I flew today. I mean, the first time I watched it was when I was free, which was
yeah,
I had an hour flight, and I was like, oof, I was blown away. I was like, yeah, and it got a lot of Oscars as well.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
oh,
But
oh,
when you listen to him and when he's talking about directing and just the choices that he makes, that's why I say you really need to. You'll get a lot more information when you watch the making of Pinocchio, because
mm,
you'll start during, like, all of his interviews, he really breaks down his choices for stories and how he approaches directing live action as opposed to the animation that he did with that. So, like I said, I'm really trying to dive more into the methodology of storytelling and how he kind of
mm,
goes about it. So,
yeah,
just a little heads up for all of you that have Netflix. Check it out. You'll definitely love it, because it's not. I will say it's not a Disney. It's not a Disney style Pinocchio, but you'll
yeah.
love it just the same. One last comment from Mr. Jeffrey Legion. Hi, I wanted to find out whether you or your colleagues at your company participate in TAFE, Toronto Animation, It has an impressive number of animation companies who offer animators opportunities. So is that something that you're part of, or
Well,
Mikros is a part of?
Mikros has the European ones. Gosh, I can't remember what it's called. There's a lot more European animation festivals. I don't think Mikros goes to CTN or Lightbox, but they definitely, because the headquarters are in Paris,
Hmm.
so they do European ones more. And it's slipping me which is the name of the film festival. FMX, I think, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
They'll go to those ones. Annecy Film Festival and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think they've been to Toronto. I mean, Paw Patrol. I mean, it was made in Toronto, so we have the premiere there, and we have the cast and crew go there. Even though it's mostly done in Montreal and Mumbai. No,
Hmm.
is it Mumbai? Oh no, Bangalore rather. Sorry,
Bangalore.
forgive me. So if they have individual shots, I'm not sure if they submit it, but for a film recruiting thing, they recruit through referral, they recruit through their website, they have their own social media posts as well, obviously advertising for the studio. And they will be at some events, but mostly European, I would say.
Mm, okay. Well, like I said, this has been amazing. Make sure that you connect with Zeina DeMille. She said you can connect with her on LinkedIn and definitely get some feedback on what you're doing. But make sure, like I said, that you connect with Zeina on all her channels. You can check out more of her work in the demo reel and Vimeo. Connect with her on LinkedIn, like I did. But definitely reach out. Again, all this stuff, all the information will be on the show notes on the YouTube channel. So make sure if you missed any of the earlier part of the interview, make sure you go back, check out the interview. Make sure you comment, give a thumbs up because, like I said, it definitely helps the episode and the channel as well. But Zeina is definitely somebody that you need to get connected with and follow because the work that she's doing and that the studio Mikros is doing is some amazing work for sure. And I'm definitely thankful that I've had a chance to build a relationship and a friendship with Zeina for sure. So super excited, Zeina, to have you come back on the show and check out all the work that you couldn't talk about right now, but I know that's
Yes.
in the works. So I'm definitely now that you are a family member of the Color Emotion, you know you always have open seat to come into the show for sure. If you could hang out for just 1 minute in the green room while I close out the show, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
But everybody, please, like I said, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed doing it. But please, everybody, help me thank my friend Zeina Masri for being on the show and sharing her wisdom and her skills and just her passion for animating and storytelling. Thank you, Zeina, for being on the show.
Thank you, Don, for having me.
All right, all right, all right, all right, man. This has been a blast. Like I said, like I told you earlier, I've been trying to get Zeno on since season one of the show, but she's just been super busy with what she's been doing. But I'm so glad that even in her jet lag moment, like I said, she just got over to London today to be with her family. So I know that's a long flight from where she's at. So I thank her so much for taking the opportunity to be on this show. Mr. Jamil, I appreciate that, brother, for thanking Zeynep for being on the show. Like I said, I appreciate you supporting as you always do. Mr. Amanix, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I hope you got some value out of it. Make sure, again, if you missed, kind of came in a little late, make sure you go back and check out the whole episode because it's just, she just gave a lot. I didn't drop a bomb this time. I usually drop a bomb on there. You have to remind me next time, Deville. But she gave so much great information. So you definitely will learn some stuff for sure. Miss Diana, I appreciate that. I appreciate the love for sure. Coming out and supporting the show. Mr. No Parking, yes, she was. Zena was great. So I'm glad you enjoyed the show. Mr. Raul, my brother from the Caribbean, I appreciate that. I read tuning in and being a part of the show as well. So thank you, man, for coming and checking it out. Like I said, this has been a blast. We got one more episode left before, we close out the year. Like I said, after next week's episode is our last episode of the year, so you definitely don't want to miss out on that because we got a super, super talented guest coming on next week for sure. Mr. Noah Alou, 3D generalist with Magic Carpet Studio. He does some amazing work as well, 3D work. So I'm super excited to have him on the show. He's going to be a great episode for sure. So make sure that you tune in next week. With that, like I said, it's been a blast and fun. And I can't thank you all enough for always supporting the show. And tuning in. Can't thank my guests enough for coming on and being a part of the Color of Motion. You, the viewers, make this such a blast to do. Hey, what can I say? I love being here each and every week. So looking forward to next week's episode and season 3. So it's going to be a blast. So make sure you have a great weekend. Make sure you tune in next week, and I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Peace, everybody.